Dean, bless you. Worship leader, bless you. Wonderful Caroline, thank you for the welcome. And Sister Murphy, homegirl, bless you. Greetings to you, my fellow siblings in the grace of God. It is good to be in your space and in this time. And I want to again thank Dean Walker for the generosity of his hospitality, of his welcome. Told him he could have chosen anyone to come, and he chose me. And I am not too proud to say that I am as happy as a jackass in the Kentucky Derby. I may not be long, but I'm sure enough glad to be here. Last night I asked what are Baptists going to do about Jesus concerning the issue of reparation for racial injustice, and I asserted that the Jesus who called and confronted, conversed with, and challenged Zacchaeus about being unjustly wealthy did so because he was hungry and thirsty for righteousness. Jesus refused to dismiss Zacchaeus as a moral monster, but appealed to him as a member of God's family who was out of fellowship with himself, out of fellowship with his Creator, out of fellowship with his community. And that hunger and thirst for righteousness also inspired Jesus to call Matthew, another tax collector, as a disciple. I argued last night that we will not have a serious conversation about racial justice in this society until we address the moral and ethical imperative for reparations for systemic racial inequities. We cannot leapfrog-like over reparations to reconciliation, although many people, including people who profess to be followers of Jesus, appear determined to do so. If we are unwilling to believe in and follow the Jesus who presented the issue of reparations to Zacchaeus as a divine, moral, ethical, and social imperative, then we are not following Jesus, we are fighting Jesus. And we are fighting Zacchaeus. The issue is whether or not we believe in God that much and are willing to follow Jesus that much. I was trying to make the point that we must reimagine where Jesus is leading us. And because I'm here as part of the James and Marilyn Dunn lecture series for 2023 titled, What Kind of Baptist? I am deliberately asking, what kind of Baptists are we if we are, and if we're not Baptists, what kind of people are we? If we are trying to figure out how not to follow Jesus, where Jesus wants to go, judging from the New Testament Gospels about his life and ministry. And today I invite us to ponder what Jesus said about denying ourselves, taking up a cross and following him from the perspective of the pericope from John 11. I am intrigued by the process Jesus used. At verse 7, Jesus spoke these words, "Let us go to Judea again." And after the disciples mentioned the physical danger of returning to a place where Jesus had already been threatened, Jesus responded, verse 11, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there," meaning to Bethany, to awaken him. And then we get to the clincher. At verse 14, Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. Finally, at verse 16, we read, Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." I'm going to try to talk about getting to Lazarus. Getting to Lazarus. I confess that the passage from Matthew 16 about taking up a cross and the one from John 11 about Jesus going to Bethany have captured me. I cannot shake the sense that Jesus openly, intentionally, and persistently declared that the liberating life he lived and called others to follow was radical, was subversive, and was threatening. And I am challenged by the tension between the security issues mentioned by the disciples concerning returning to Judea and the following statements. Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. And let us also go, that we may die with him. Where are the Judea and Bethany regions? Jesus wants us to go with him. Where are the Judea and Bethany regions that Jesus wants us to go with him? Let me press the point. Can we admit with the disciples that we do not want to return to some places that look like Bethany if we are returning to Lazarus? Dead Lazarus? Can we admit there are places and people we are prepared to not see, not serve, not stand alongside, not put ourselves at risk for, and not have Jesus lead us into community with, because doing so would threaten us existentially? Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. Could it be that the society where 7 out of 10 persons profess to be Christians leads the world in mass incarceration because the criminal punishment system and its white supremacist, capitalist, misogynistic, and xenophobic drivers is a Judea to which we do not want Jesus to lead us? Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. Can we admit solidarity with the disciples who expressed reluctance about going to Judea concerning the tomb-like experience of Palestinians suffering from Israeli apartheid? Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. Can we admit solidarity with the disciples and our reluctance about going to the Judea of abusive and homicidal policing? Tyree Nichols, Lazarus is dead. George Floyd, Lazarus is dead. Sandra Bland, Lazarus is dead. Oscar Grant, Lazarus is dead. Amadou Diallo, Lazarus is dead. Name them. Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. Can we admit solidarity with the disciples and our reluctance about going to Judea of people entombed by white supremacy, entombed by free market capitalist fundamentalism, entombed by global militarism, entombed with sexism and patriarchal authoritarianism and creation-threatening technocentrism and neighbor-hating xenophobia? Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. And can we confess our concern that going to those and other issues of human suffering threatens our notions of ministry, our notions of success, and our notions of even existence? Lazarus is dead, you understand. Let us go to him. What does going to Lazarus cost or threaten us? Let me make it plain, as Dr. J. Alfred Smith says. Can we admit we do not want to return to Bethany for dead Lazarus, entombed Lazarus, penniless Lazarus, unhoused Lazarus, gerrymandered Lazarus, profiled Lazarus, Israeli-occupied Lazarus, Christian nationalized Lazarus, outside the heterosexual binary Lazarus? Can we admit with the disciples that we don't want Jesus going to some venues and confronting some issues because we don't want to follow Jesus there? And if we can talk Jesus out of going, we ain't got to go. Why risk death for Lazarus anyway? Why risk death for Lazarus? What makes Lazarus worth the risk of being marginalized, maligned, and disregarded? Why, let me make it plain, why spend all this time and go to all this expense to obtain a theological education and skills for Lazarus? Go to a booming Big church with a good pension plan, good staff. But Jesus shows that is not the controlling issue. Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him. Lazarus is dead, but let us go to him. What hope is there for Lazarus without Jesus? Jesus made it plain that the issue was not what would happen to him if he went to Lazarus. The issue was what would happen to Lazarus and to Mary. And don't forget Martha. And don't forget Bethany. If Jesus did not go to Lazarus. Jesus was not reckless in going to Judea. He was resolute. He had resolved to live for liberation. He had resolved to live for life. Lazarus was held hostage. And Jesus refused to lead his disciples in a liberatory life and ministry of intentional cross-bearing and risk-taking by defining and confining his ministry to where he was safe. Lazarus is dead. Let us go to him. I think that's what led Thomas. You recall Thomas gets the bad rap in Scripture. Thomas gets the bad rap unfairly because Thomas is us. If we tell the truth, Thomas is us. But Thomas gets the bad rap. Thomas said, let us also go, that we may die with him. Does it matter whether Thomas said that out of a sense of frustration or futility? I don't think so. It doesn't matter whether Thomas was talking about dying with Jesus or dying with Lazarus. If following Jesus meant dying with Jesus, then Lazarus was willing to follow Jesus in whatever Jesus considered a liberating mission, even on behalf of dead Lazarus. That's taking up your cross. Because you see, we don't mind taking up a cross for superstardom. We don't mind taking up the cross for celebrity. But take up the cross for Lazarus? Take up the cross for dead Lazarus? You know, in some circles I would say, take up the cross for dead A Lazarus? Come on. The Spirit of God calls us to go to Lazarus people in Judea-like situations that carry personal and professional risk. The life of God calls us to entombed Lazarus people and situations. The Son of God summons and invites and leads us to embrace the risk associated with going to Lazarus people. God believes Lazarus people are worth it. God believes a Lazarus world, catch that, is worth it. The world is Bethany. And Jesus is waiting for us to go with him to Lazarus. God is waiting for us to go with Jesus to Lazarus. The world, our Judea and Bethany, is waiting for us to go with Jesus to Lazarus. Lazarus people and situations are waiting for us. The question is, will we go with Jesus to them? And if not, how much will we work and worry Jesus about not going? Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. I'll go with him all to Lazarus.